Are Americans getting high on the job? That's what a recent survey from Detox.com found. More than 1,000 people were polled across the country, and nearly 7 out of 10 admitted to doing drugs at work.
What?
Wow.
The caveat here, the participants had to admit to using drugs at least once in their lifetime. But the fact that even so, 70% were using in the workplace most common drugs, opiates and benzodiazepines, that's things like Xanax and Valium. But what's crazy is people are using everything from PCP to cocaine, on down the line.
Maybe that's why I went through the drive-through and I had the buns in the middle and the patties on the outside. And the cheese somewhere in between that.
One of the most remarkable things about the survey, the 7 out of 10 number, it did not include the use of marijuana because legality is obviously very different from state to state. But of course, this brings a lot of thorny issues to the forefront. We have defense lawyer Anthony Tall on the phone to join us in this discussion because it's now legal recreationally in states like California, Colorado, many, many more states. So what does happen now at the place of work? Are employers still able to drug test people, for instance, for marijuana? And if so, what happens?
Well, they are, but you have to remember now there's going to have to be some parameters around it because it's legal in California now. So there's going to be some parameters around it. They're going to have a policy in effect. If they don't have a policy stating that you can't use this drug at this certain time or there's a time, place, and manner, then you're going to expect a lot of lawsuits. We're going to see a lot of lawsuits in California.
I mean, that's such a good point, Anthony. And, you know, now marijuana is legal, alcohol is legal, and you can go to work and still have those substances tested in your system, but you're not intoxicated. So that's a big issue.
Yeah, it is. That's a really big issue. And not only that, if these companies don't have like I said, a policy or give out some type of notice, like, well, you can't use marijuana 2 days before on Friday and then come in on Monday. If someone does and then they test them and then they turn positive, you know, like I said, that's a lawsuit.
Well, so what is the happy medium? Because, heck, in a lot of professions, people will go out during lunch, have a beer, have a cocktail, have a glass of wine, and then go back to work. So is it now the same going to be okay? You take a break for lunch and, you know, maybe you take some marijuana. And then also it's muddied also because some of these things are prescription medications. Opiates, we know, can be taken illegally or legally. So is there going to be more subjectivity here?
Absolutely. I think this is going to be kind of like what we're seeing in internet law. A lot of this is going to evolve through the circumstances. It's going to be based on a case-by-case basis. But your example is spot on. You know, a lot of people, you know, they go to work and then at lunchtime they go out with their colleagues and they have a beer and then they go back to work. So there's nothing that says you can't go out, take a couple of puffs, and then go right back to work. You know, so, but I think the balancing test is going to be whether or not a lot of things that you guys were talking about. Obviously, if you're in a profession where someone's safety is at your hands, that's going to be the highest risk of. Obviously, they're going to be more legally justified in terminating you or firing you or suspending you if they find any type of use. But in other jobs, that's not where your personal safety is in someone's hands. It's going to be a lot more circumstances. It's not necessarily illegal or unlawful at this point.
And Anthony, I mean, if you have a prescription given to you by a doctor for the Valium, Xanax, those kind of things, I mean, you're going to beat any type of prosecution, correct?
Absolutely. You're going to beat any type of prosecution. I mean, provided you don't take Xanax or do something and go and take a crime against someone at work. Yeah, we've always been allowed to take prescription drugs over the counter. So if you have a prescription and you're taking it and it's at work and it's not affecting you at work, nothing they can do about it.
So just so we're clear, you're saying, for example, recreational marijuana is legal in California. So if someone partakes, as of today, they still could potentially be fired if they test positive for marijuana. So they should check with their employer about the rules, or what exactly are you saying in that instance?
That's a good point. Employees are going to now have to be on top of the policies and reading them more. But if there's no policy in effect, then and they fire you, like I said, expect a lawsuit.
Well, an example that comes to mind for me is you could be a football player and you could play for a team based in California, yet in the National Football League, marijuana is not a legal substance. So despite the fact that you are using a legal substance in the state of California, that is not okay with your employer. So I think people they need to be aware that just because something is legal, heck, marijuana is legal in certain states, but it's still not federally considered okay. So there's a lot of interesting gray area here. Only time will tell. Anthony, I'm sure you will be very busy in the meantime. Thanks so much for joining us.